Welcome, everybody. My name is Fernando Zacarias, and I'm the founder and program coordinator of MultiPOD Mentoring. We are going to have a webinar trying to answer the 9 questions about your future and discuss how you can find your answers. 2 of our mentors, Ron Anderson and Sue Griffey, will make presentations with me, and we will have 3 young professionals in the program: Shirley Bejarano from Colombia, US, Jessica Diaz from Austria, and Natalina Sutton from the United Kingdom. The objectives of this webinar are 3. The first one, as I mentioned, is to address the 9 questions that you should ask and answer yourselves about your future. The second is that I realize that people do not have enough clarity about what drives us. And this is why we have the name MultiPOD, which has to do with pathways, opportunities, and decisions. And the third objective is that we want to use the video of these presentations as the prime matter for promotional videos for our prospective mentees and mentors for 2021. Again, the meaning of MultiPOD is the multiple pathways, O of opportunities and D of decisions that you are facing now for your future careers and your personal lives. And what we are doing at MultiPOD is trying to help you find your own answers, not our answers. And to summarize, what we do has to do with your pathways. Your mentors help you identify the possible directions for your career. And this is symbolic. But this young man, you can see that he has a backpack, and in the backpack is his background, his knowledge, his experience, his expertise, everything that he has accumulated until now. But then he's also looking for opportunities. You are all looking for opportunities. So the container is now larger, because now, in addition to your background and knowledge, expertise, experience, it contains your aspirations, your hopes, your dreams, and you are looking at the future. And the third component has to do with your choices. And here you see a young woman. She only has a handbag because she has refined and she's targeting on the opportunities that she has. And what she needs to do now is to decide if she is going to enter or stay outside, or enter the blue or the red door, or maybe 2, 3, or 4 doors. And these are the 9 questions. The first series of 3 have to do with who you are, what you are, and what is your ikigai. And main mentor Ron Anderson is going to address those 3 questions that lead you to your pathway. The next 3 questions have to do with opportunities, and they have to do with how do you know what you want, and especially how do you find and get what you want. And main mentor Sue Griffey is going to talk and discuss those 3 questions. And the third series has to do with choices. And I am going to talk about that. How do I know when this is it? How do I choose? And when should I choose? Because the most important part is that we will be talking about your future. There are 3 points that are important that you remember. The first one is, what is my ikigai? The second one is the communication between how do you find and how do you get what you want. And the third one is, how do you choose? So pay special attention to these 3 items in our presentations. And now I'm going to give the floor to our first main mentor, Ron Anderson from Canada, and he's going to give you the first presentation. You can see the information about his career. I met him in January in Mexico, and I was very happy when we talked about his background in education and training and long distance, and how he was not only involved in teaching, but what really impressed me is what he says at the end, that his vision is to give back to others. And I think that he's not only giving back, he's going to give forward to many of you. So it's a real pleasure to welcome Ron. And Ron, please go ahead.
Thank you, Fernando. We're looking at the first part of the MultiPOD experience, and that is to determine your pathway. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by. This is these are some lines from a poem by Robert Frost. I've always found it interesting because some of us do take a very well traveled path, and others take the road least traveled by. So when a young professional joins MultiPOD, there are usually a couple of reasons. One is a transition from educational environment. It's a loss of support systems in school, such as friends, professors, and so on. And another reason is a transition from another type of work environment. For example, a change in professional focus. For example, changing from bedside nursing to, say, research in public health. And this can create an uncertainty about how to approach the work environment and uncertainty about a professional focus. So in determining your pathway, we ask 3 questions. Who am I, and what is my ikigai, or my purpose in life? Starting with the first question, we look at personality. The Myers-Briggs test is available on the internet, and it's interesting that some organizations use the Myers-Briggs test to help determine whether a person is a good match in the organization. So it's a good idea to understand what your personality type is and what that means for you. It's also a good idea to meet your 3 different people, who you are, or how you see yourself. And some of us have a overinflated view of ourselves, and some of us have an underinflated view of ourselves. A few of us have a pretty good idea of who we are. And then there is how other people see us, or how we think they see us, because there can be a difference. The third person is the real person, is who we really are. And when we understand that, we can say we know our authentic self, and we call this authenticity. A challenge for many of us is that we see ourselves as frauds or imposters, and so that can interfere with your ability to tell your story. So what made you who you are? It's your background. That includes your family and what happened when you were growing up, your network of your friends and your professional interests, your language, do you speak more than one, and your ethnic background or your national background. There's also your aspirations, your ambitions, and your needs are part of that background. How those developed made you who you are. The next question we look at is, what am I? And how do you identify yourself? Some of us identify ourselves in a professional capacity. I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, I'm a retired military officer. Some identify based on gender. I'm a woman, a man, or some other gender concept. And others of us talk about ourselves in terms of our country. I'm a Canadian, I'm an Austrian, I'm an American. And then how do you introduce yourself? It's a good idea to have a business card, because when you meet someone, you can leave them with your business card, and later on, they might remember who you are and decide to look you up. It's also a good idea to have an elevator talk. This is a business concept where an individual has only a few minutes that it might take during an elevator ride to explain who they are or what their idea is. So it's a good idea to have that. And nowadays, most of us have an online identity, and LinkedIn is a good method for networking with other individuals and introducing yourself to others. And some of us still send out emails and letters, electronic letters. So it's a good idea to have a good signature block, which helps explain who you are and what you do. So Sue has supplied hers here. That's our next speaker. And so thank you, Sue, for sharing that with us. Ultimately, we're talking about your brand, and what your brand is something you need to work on. So in looking at your pathway, part of it is telling your story, who you are and what you are, and then there's more. When a young professional first gets introduced to a mentor, they have a chance to get to know one another and tell each other part of their story. The third question we look at in this section is, what is my purpose in life? We all start off as young babies, and you sometimes wonder what the purpose of a baby is. Well, ultimately, it is to thrive and to grow and adapt into the world. And as children get older, they acquire more knowledge about the world and learn how to get along in it. Eventually, there's school, and our purposes start to change, and our purpose is to acquire knowledge. Our purpose is to find friends and networks of people. And eventually, when we leave school, we have our professional life, our work life. And so we can sometimes find that we have a new purpose. When we're looking at our purpose, it's about our passions, our mission, our vocation, and our profession. And we call this my ikigai, or my purpose in life, or my ikigai. It's a Japanese concept. And when all these things are in balance, in perfect balance, then we can say your ikigai is in balance. It's an intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And for example, you might be in a job that you can be paid for, but it's not something you love, and we can say your ikigai is out of balance. On the MultiPOD site, there is a module that allows you to look at your ikigai with some links to videos and so on. And then there's this graphic which explains what I've been talking about. And it's an intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. Some individuals have some difficulty in establishing what their mission in life is. And so we've developed a module, developing a personal mission statement, which allows you to explore this particular aspect. A personal mission statement is an empowering personal statement of values and motivations that help establish boundaries while guiding personal focus on how to impact the world. It's a burning and passionate yes, an expression of unique capacity to contribute. A young professional, Jessica Diaz, had a chance to share her experience using the personal mission statement. So Jessica is an Austrian, and she's just completing her master's. And so thank you, Jessica, for contributing to our
we did this exercise on on developing your personal mission statement, where I had to imagine myself 10 years later at an event with all the people I want to invite. And this exercise was very helpful for me to imagine somehow the kind of person I want to be in the future. And it helped me to have some guidance and sense where I want to head my journey. For example, one part of the exercise was to imagine what I want the other people say about me. And this is a great exercise to actually understand like how you want to be reflected within other people. So like to summarize, like till this point, I still don't know my personal statement, but I have an incremental sense of what my personal mission statement is.
Thank you, Jessica. So in summary, we're looking at determining your pathway. We have 3 questions. Who am I, and what is my ikigai? We have various tools that you can use. Some are on the MultiPOD site, like modules. And there are personality tests that you can find on the internet. And of course, there's the mentor conversations. But don't be surprised when later when you're doing another aspect of your journey, such as exploring opportunities or making decisions, that you find yourself coming back to this stage. One particular opportunity is when you're discussing your resume or your CV with your mentor. This can help you discover new things about who you are and what your capacities are and what your purpose might be. Jessica has something to say about that.
Even though I don't have that many years, but within this smaller amount of years, there is a lot of things that could be identified and which are valuable for other things. So this conversation around this, my CV, my experience, was very helpful to identify my available capacities and also increase my I would say my confidence a bit that I'm actually on a good way, even though there isn't much, but there isn't much yet.
Thank you, Jessica. Just to let you know, we got some exciting news just recently. Jessica just found out that she's been accepted for a 4-month internship with the International Center for Migration Policy and Development, so congratulations. Our next speaker is Sue Griffey, and she's also known as Sue Mentors. And for the past 10 years, she's been focusing on mentoring after a 30-year career in global and U.S. health and development. And she's been primarily a program evaluator. And you can see some of those things. She also does private clients under the auspices of MultiPOD and some other aspects that you can see there. So I'll turn it over to Sue, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Ron, for that nice introduction. Now we're going to address the next 3 questions, the middle section on finding your opportunities. But before we do, let's just integrate and remind ourselves the questions that Ron covered, the first 3. It's important to understand what you're showing. You see your professional presence when you think about going to a meeting, maybe dressed like this woman is, all put together. But Ron's also reminded us that professional presence includes many things that are written or online. So here are what I consider the 4 elements of your professional presence, starting in the top left. Your history, in the US we call this your full CV, curriculum vitae. On the top right, this is your story. I call this a bio para, other people have other words for it, but it's a summary of your experience in what you're working in and aiming at where you want to go. Bottom left, you probably have a resume template where you are using it right now for applying for fellowships, scholarships, jobs, and the like. And finally, on the bottom right, Natalina's LinkedIn. You'll see her soon, but this is your electronic presence primarily on LinkedIn. All right, first question of the middle section of opportunities. What do I want? It's important to understand that what you want is a combination of your goals, short-term, long-term, your ikigai, as Ron went over, this is your purpose in life, and then your aspirations and ambitions that take you along your career path and propel you further and further along. How do I find what I want? Well, this is the area where these 2 hashtags are going to help. See and be seen, and give value to get value. Do your research, but that doesn't mean just jump in and start looking at organizations and applying for jobs without some thought. Especially for you as students and young professionals, make sure you understand how your business is conducted, global health, even specific areas, to help you know what kinds of jobs and fellowships to aim at. I've divided this information into 2 sides of the slide. The left-hand side are what I call the doers. These are implementing agencies, starting at the top left and going clockwise, nonprofit organizations, academia, consulting organizations, which are a subset of private organizations, private corporations in the bottom left. On the right are the people that give you, on the left, the money to do work with. And you may be working at a foundation at the top, the multilaterals, all the UN agencies, or even venture capitalists and seed funders who supply funding to have work done to further interventions and public health and global health results. Now you're ready to answer the rest of these questions: who, what, when, where, why, how, looking specifically at what location do I want to be in, what kinds of organizations are there, and what I want to do in life. The second part of finding what you want to do is networking effectively. So this is giving value to get value and not just asking for a LinkedIn connection. Here's some examples. On the left, two examples from LinkedIn. On the bottom right, a tweet from someone I follow on Twitter in evaluation. And don't forget about video chats and phone chats. These are not informational interviews. These are direct and individual networking where you ask for and have a brief phone or video meeting. This is your chance to give value and to get value. Finally, how do you get what you want? Well, the silver lining right now in the middle of this pandemic is that there are more, not fewer, opportunities to see and be seen. And the barrier to entry is very low. Many of them are free, and if they do charge, there are minimal costs associated. In the old days, before the pandemic, lunch meetings at your office or other locations are now turning into lunch and learn. This is a recent one I went to on LinkedIn that used to be in person, based in New Jersey. You add your value, you can see and be seen by using your name and even your location in your Zoom tile or other tile, and also make sure in the chat box, even if it's not going to be open for questions, if there's a chat box, add your comments, add your LinkedIn URL, something to bring together people's eyes on your name along with what you're giving value in. Before, we attended professional meetings and seminars, maybe a few times a year. Now, this is just what I did last week. I attended a free 2-day Independent Women's Summit. I attended a 2-hour pitch meeting from young entrepreneurs that Stanford was holding for a contest for $10,000 in funding. And finally, I know that promoting yourself feels hard and egotistical, but here's a way to do it that puts your personal, professional self out there. You're giving value to get value. So the top right, someone I worked with on an article where she could show a technical area, child protection, that she wanted to bring into her new company, Opportunity International, where she was working. Bottom right, I promoted a tweet from the American Public Health Association Student Assembly. Their mentoring committee co-chairs had interviewed me when they finally got it published and put out. I was able to boost them and boost the student assembly at the APHA by tweeting my thanks to them. Now you're ready to aim at where you want to go and to select and aim at your opportunities that are going to be more relevant with a way that you can tell a compelling story. So let's hear from Natalina, who I'm mentoring right now, about her journey moving from a clinical career into public health and what she's done with her professional presence.
So when I found out about MultiPOD Mentoring back in December last year, I was really excited about the opportunity to join the program. At that point, I had just finished my MSc in public health, and I was trying to figure out what my next move was. I was kind of in a period of transition for many different reasons. So I was trying to transition from a clinical career into a career in public health. I had also taken a bit of a break to start a family, so I was getting back into full-time work after having taken some time out. And also I was trying to decide what country I wanted to live in. So I was initially based in Spain at that point as I was finishing my MSc, but then I wasn't sure whether I wanted to stay in Spain or move back to the UK. where I did my clinical training and where I grew up. So there were a lot of options available to me, and it was all quite overwhelming, and sometimes having too many options can be challenging and mean that felt like I didn't have any direction in where I was going. So so I was glad to have found MultiPOD, and really glad to have had Sue as my mentor for the past 6 months. So the main things that we've worked on really are trying to form my narrative and like tell my story. I was telling my story in a very kind of boring way, and actually talking to Sue about everything I'd done, even things that I had done while I was working clinically, which I thought weren't really relevant anymore now that I wanted to do public health. She kind of drew all of those things out and made me realize that actually I had much more experience than I thought I had more skills that I could offer. And we kind of worked together to write my biopara, which would be kind of on the top of my CV and on my LinkedIn profile as a really great summary of everything I've done so far. So the other thing that we spent a lot of time working on was my long CV. So this, I thought it would be quite straightforward, just writing a list of everything I'd done. But really we went into much more detail, identifying evidence-based outcomes for everything that I had done, rather than just writing generic phrases about what the job entailed, like really focusing on the outcomes. And that has been like an amazing resource to have when applying for jobs. I used to get really nervous and spend lots of time on job applications just trying to think of answers, but once you have that done, it's so easy to just look at it and you just copy and paste across, like that is relevant for that answer, that is relevant for that answer. So that was really great. So I'm really happy to have joined MultiPOD, really happy to have worked with Sue as my mentor. I've recently started a new job actually working in clinical trials, which actually combines my clinical background to have a positive impact in public health, which is has been a really great outcome.
And I'd like now to introduce Dr. Fernando Zacarias. As we all know, he's the founder of MultiPOD Mentoring. He's had more than three decades of teaching and mentoring, 5 decades of being a clinical public health specialist around the world, so many different regions and countries. And on top of that, a key advisor to so many global and national institutions where they have sought out his expertise. So Fernando, it's yours now.
What I'm going to talk about is what will you do next? You already have identified your pathway and you have your opportunities, and now you need to make your decision. And there are the 3 questions that you have to answer yourself. How do you know that this is it? This is the opportunity that you wanted. Well, my friends, it's like when you fall in love. That sense of elation, of butterflies in your stomach, that say, I really want it. The pride, the thrill that you feel. But wait a moment. You need to recheck your life purpose, your ikigai, for the 3rd time. And you may need to do more investigation. Especially try to get insiders information. What is the culture of the organization that you want to join? And if you are moving to another country, you have already investigated, but you need to have more fresh, or perhaps there are some details that you would like to know a little bit more. And then this is the crucial point. How do I choose? You need then to match the organization with your ikigai as much as possible. Listen, I say match the organization with your ikigai and not the other way around, because your ikigai is you. is your purpose in life. So you don't adapt your ikigai to the organization, but try the organization to match as much as possible with your ikigai. And then objectively, you make a decision matrix, which are the factors that are really of relevance to you and to your family. And you will ask your friends, you will ask your mentor if you have one. But in the last instance, it is your decision because it is your life. And the ninth question is, when should you choose? When you have completed 7 and 8, when you feel comfortable, and when you are ready to say yes or no. I always tell my mentees that this is not the end. If you join an organization and then you realize at some point that, oh, okay, this is not exactly what I wanted, you need to give it time, because it takes time to acclimatize yourself to the new organization or a new country. But if you think you have made a mistake, you don't need to worry too much. You are young, and you can always take another path, find other opportunities, and make other decisions. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you how you can do this in a more objective way. You know your ikigai, you know what you want, and you got it. You just have to say yes or no. Well, this is one way in which you can do it. This is a decision matrix, and here you have as options organization 1, organization 2, or stay where you are, the job that you have, the country where you are. This is the position. And please look, you are given a number 1 to the worst and 5 to the best. So organization 1 is offering you the best position possible. The location is horrible. The salary is very good, and the living conditions are not very good. The total score, the total for those factors is 12. You can decide which factors are important for you. It could be commute, could be whatever. Organization 2, the most important part is that location is very good. And then where you are right now, you hate what you are doing. You hate your position, and you have a meager salary, but you love your country or where you are, the city where you are, and you have your family, your friends, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and you get a 12. Now, this is not very helpful because you got 12, 12, and 12. How do you choose? Well, you choose because you put a weight. You rated objectively each one of the organizations and your present organization, but now you need to rank. What is most important to you? And with that, you will get a score. Let me explain to you. For example, you really think the most important thing that you are seeking is a good position. You want to be director or manager, and you are looking for a good salary. So what you do is you put your 1 to 5, but then you multiply 4 times 5 and see what happens. You go 1 by 1 and you end up with 44 instead of 12. And the second organization, you do the same operations and you end up with a 37. And if you stay where you are, you end up with a score of 34. This is not all you need to make your decision, but it's a very good guide as to what should you discuss with your family and with anybody else that you respect and whose opinion you want. But apparently this difference between 34 and 44 is big. 37 and 44, you can decide what is what you want. Now, I'm going to give the microphone to one of our first mentees, Shirley Bejarano. She was a mentee in 2017, and then she became a technical officer, and now she's assisting me with the coordination of the program. And she's presently the Director of Education and Prevention at the AIDS Center of Queens County in New York. So Shirley, please go ahead The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, Fernando. And so my first initial experience with MultiPOD, I was approached by Fernando through LinkedIn and very honored to then be accepted into the MultiPOD program. MultiPOD came into my life at a very critical point, and I was at the decision phase. I was actually not in the pathways phase. And the decision was to either I continue my work or work in global health, looking for work in global health, or I continue in the HIV field. So I was given the opportunity to, or offered a position to be a director of this HIV/AIDS organization in New York. And I was not sure what I wanted to do. And so with the guidance of Fernando, we did a matrix as he presented the decision matrix. And I ended up choosing, obviously, the director position. One thing that I will not forget that Fernando had always mentioned to me is that you're not married to this decision. If it doesn't work out, we will work on something else and trying to find another opportunity. So 3 years later, I'm obviously continuing with MultiPOD, and that's been one of the highlights as well. After the program, I continued to have sessions with Fernando, and I've also had the opportunity to work with other mentors like Ron, and I've had some sessions with Ron, with Dr. Masin and Dr. Sotelo, which is, I would encourage others to also seek that continuation of mentorship. So now I am back looking at the Pathways, Opportunities, Decision stages. So I'm back now at the Pathways phase, where I'm looking for the next step in my career. And so I'm looking back at my Ikigai, reviewing that and seeing what is the direction that I want to go in. And right now, having the guidance of the mentors has been super helpful to find other opportunities as well. So thank you very much for allowing me to share my story.
We've come to the end of the webinar, and I wanted to thank everybody who has participated, speaking or giving their commentaries. Also Charlie Shine, which was in charge of the technical aspects of the webinar. But mostly I want to thank all of you. But before we close the webinar, I want to leave you with two or three messages. The first one is that no matter what, this is your life. And you need to find and fulfill your Ikigai. And you're in a rush because you have only 50 years to do it. And this is not a joke. Mentors share with you their own past, their own lives, in addition to the professional counsel that they can give you, or counseling that they can give you. For example, I found my mission when I was 8 years old, because my mother told me, you are going to be a doctor and you are going to help people. And then it took me many years, but at age 30, I already had my profession. I was a physician, I was a specialist in infectious diseases, and I was a good clinician, that's what I think. And at age 40, I found my passion. I entered into the area of international health, now global health, and stayed there for 30 years. And then 6 years ago, when I was 70, I discovered that my true vocation all of my life had been to be a mentor. And I want to leave you with a second thought. This quote is from a young man whose father wanted him to become a doctor, a physician, and sent him to school. And he said, oh, I hate the sight of blood and I cannot dissect the cadavers and this is horrible. So he failed, and he failed miserably. He went back and his father told him, you will never amount to anything. You are a disgrace to yourself and to your family. But the father had to do something, and he said, well, I will find something for you. And he found him a position as a vicar in the church, but he had to go to university before. So he sent me to university, and he was a very bad student. He could hardly pass any of the courses, but he had a mentor who saw that this young man was interested in looking at birds, looking at plants, and the mentor was a professor of botany. So after he finished at the bottom of his class, the teacher told him there's a possibility, an opportunity for an expedition. They are looking for a naturalist to go on an expedition for the next 4 or 5 years. And you would be ideal. Why don't you take that job? And this quote is from a letter of Charles Darwin to the captain of the Beagle, the eve before the Beagle departed for the Americas. When Charles came back to the UK at age 26, 27, he already had in him the theory of evolution and the origin of species. And my last comment to you, you saw this before. Your middle name is next. We don't want you to say, I'm satisfied because I achieved my goals. My friends, the good news is that your work never ends. You are working in global health and human development. And you should be very grateful because you will always have something to do. Well, thank you very much to everybody for your attention, and we will see you in 1 month for a second webinar. Thank you.